Georgia, oh Georgia, the whole day through. Georgia, on my mind. Hey, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Let's give John Legend a hand.
Kimberly, the follow-up song is "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?"
Ah.
The Georgia State Legislature, the governor, the Secretary of State, the whole 9 yards are currently in the process of writing voter suppression legislation to introduce in 2021. So,
Wow. That's a good one. Will you still love me tomorrow?
That's what they do.
All right. I'm going to welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to a national dialogue, Fighting for Our Lives in the Global Pandemic, hosted by the League of Revolutionaries for New America. Today, we offer you powerful speakers who help us see politics in a different way. They utilize politics to fight for the basic needs of their communities. The wealth exists in this society to provide for all those needs. Today's speakers help us to envision a world where housing, healthcare, education, and true safety and justice are guaranteed to all. We are here today to engage in the thinking behind the struggle to transform society in the interest of all of humanity and the earth. This is revolutionary thinking, revolutionary struggle. I'm Kimberly King, and I'm one of your hosts today. I'd like to introduce one of our co-hosts, Ms. Alicia Rea. Alicia Rea is a second-generation Chicanx student organizer from Stockton, California. She currently serves as the student government president of Laney College, working as an advocate for students' basic needs. Rea most recently has been part of the campaign to defund the sheriffs from the Peralta Community College District. Welcome, Rea.
All right, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Dr. King. It is so good to be in community with you all, even though it is virtual. I'm really excited for this next speaker. Their name is Adam Gottlieb. They are a poet, musician, and an organizer from Chicago. He is currently an interim board member of the Chicago Union of the Homeless. Very happy to have you start us off here, Adam. Please, I'll pass the mic now to you.
Thank you so much, Rhea. Can you all hear me? Give me a thumbs up. All right. Well, thank you everyone for having me here. I'm really geeked to be here right now. The winter we are now entering is of profound historic importance. I don't think this can be overstated. At a moment when over 312,000 Americans have lost their lives to a global pandemic through a combination of utter incompetence and shameless greed on the part of our corporate-run government, and the virus still surges across the country with an 11.4% infection rate, according to Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, millions of Americans are now facing the threat of evictions and the nightmare of homelessness in the midst of this public health crisis. The 2020 elections were, in a very real sense, a referendum on whether the public would accept a fascist reaction to this breakdown of society. The fact that the American people largely rejected this fascist vision by rejecting Donald Trump is an important victory for all of us who are fighting for our lives, for each other, and for future generations. As we enter the time of the winter solstice and the Christmas holiday, my heart is heavy with the awareness of many friends and neighbors here in Chicago who are going to sleep tonight in tents, doorways, cars, harsh shelters, doubled up apartments, and other unsafe places all over the city. But I am also profoundly hopeful, and it is not just because of what I believe, but what I have seen. Over the last year, we have seen leaders like Carol Fife, who we'll hear from today, from the Moms for Housing struggle in Oakland, a group that has shown millions of Americans the way forward to a society that cares for people. It is simple, really. We must choose to house people in vacant units rather than let them die on the street. We must organize to do this by any and all means necessary. And when we do, we learn that there are many, many more good people in the world than wicked ones, and that we can win revolutionary victories when we harness the power of the people. But not only that, I have personally borne witness to something historic in Chicago and had the honor of participating in it, especially over the last year. Through a focused effort of several comrades, including leaders from several homeless encampments, as well as several of my comrades in the League of Revolutionaries for a New America and others, we have recently revived the Chicago Union of the Homeless. That's right. After a 30-year hiatus, the Union of the Homeless is back here in Chicago and around the country. Our main political mentor here has been Joe Puri, an original founding member of the Chicago Gary Area Union of the Homeless from the 80s and 90s, who I think is also on this call.
They have started, yes.
We have been extremely busy organizing actions on the ground this month as we launch a winter offensive, and I'm happy to share more information about that later if you all want. One of the speakers you will hear from today is Bonnie Contreras, our interim president, a woman who is on the very front lines of our revolutionary fight as she struggles to secure housing even now while serving as the first president of our new union. A Black mother and grandmother living with a disability from an accident that caused her to lose her job, she brings a spirit of perseverance and vision to our work that everyone she comes across admires and is inspired by. Already, we are seeing the way that this kind of movement organized around the immediate needs of the most vulnerable has the power to unite every struggle into a movement to form a more perfect union, as the preamble says, to establish justice and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you so much, Adam Gottlieb from Chicago. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Jitu Siddiqui, one of our other co-hosts today. Jitu, who I've known for many years. He was originally a guest on my radio show in Los Angeles called Beautiful Struggle on the Pacifica station in the early 2000s. And I know Jitu as a fighter.
Dr. King, unmute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So Jitu, I've known him for many years, originally as a guest on my, can someone else does need to mute this? Hello? Okay. One more time, three's the charm. Okay, I'd like to introduce Jitu Siddiqui. Jitu is an activist on many fronts. I think that's for some reason there's an echo on my mic. Particularly, Jitu has been addressing advocacy for prisoners, deconstructing the prison industrial complex, police violence, and advocating support for street organizations, with an emphasis on African and Latinx solidarity. Jitu has been a member of LERNA since the early 90s, and it's a pleasure to bring in Mr. Jitu Siddiqui. Hey, Jitu. Jitu might be on mute. There you go.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to thank Kimberly for the introduction. Also like to kind of step back a little bit in terms of introducing Kimberly, who, please bear with me. Kimberly's a professor of psychology and ethnic studies, and a founding member of the Laney chapter of the Poor People's Campaign at Laney College in Oakland, California. She is engaged in work to defund the policing for housing and education as human rights. Kimberly serves on the editorial board of Rally Comrades, political newspaper of the League of Revolutionaries for a New America. I also want to take the time to introduce Ethel Long Scott, who I've known for approximately 30 years. I was told I can't speak on some of the escapades about Ethel and her attempts to take over. She and I attended a event back in 1992 in Dominican Republic to challenge the junta's celebration of 500 year of Columbus tyranny, Christopher Columbus tyranny. Anyway, Ethel is someone who has been involved with the movement for almost 50 years. That's some serious dedication. She has worked from the grassroots level to internationally to build movements for human rights. For nearly 50 years in jobs as varied as grassroots community organizer, social issues, advocate, political campaign strategies. She has a vision of a society that, unlike ours, does not require victims in order to thrive. Her efforts are known and respected in the quarters of power, from labor unions to rent strikers, from essential care workers on the front line for COVID-19. Ethel is the founder of the League and long-term revolutionary community teacher. Ethel, can you share with us?
Okay. All right. So after that wonderful introduction, I'm going to give you the extra $10 for not telling all those stories. But also, in all seriousness, I really appreciate those kind words and the opportunity to work with so many, many leaders in this work. Greetings to you, democracy defenders. You know, at this juncture, like the abolitionists, we have a historic opportunity. Digital technology is transforming society and producing new kinds of leaders, and some of them will speak today. They are demanding change, tying basic human needs like housing to government responsibility to take care of its people. The Basic Needs Electoral Task Force Dialogues is actually a committee of the League of Revolutionaries. Brings together fighters from different movements to share experiences, devise strategies, and build more unity between different sections of workers being kicked to the curb by the capitalist system that Adam spoke about so eloquently. In the November election, a majority of workers came together, voiced the indignation of the American people, defying voter suppression to vote in historic numbers, and they are still continuing to as we speak, rejecting the fascist tyrant Trump and his billionaire swamp. It is significant. It is a significant win, but still it exists in both major parties. Is a pursuit of private property. The war ahead of us for this working class is to forge a plan to defeat American fascism, or otherwise known as rule by corporations. These dialogues are a part of forging that plan. The League of Revolutionaries for a New America is bringing together in today's panel trailblazing defenders of democracy and framers of human rights to ensure racial capitalism is vanquished and a new cooperative society is established in the name of government by and for the people. Lerna's expertise is in political education about securing class power. How is it held? How are our rulers control us? How our movement can defeat the rulers to accomplish its goals of full equality, decent life, and a sustainable future for humanity. Lerna is available to you all to help build a broad social movement for basic needs. California has leaders representing new ideas from the working class, fighting for basic needs inside and outside the electoral arena. Moms for Housing, born out of the basic needs necessities, points the way forward. Those most affected by problems taking the lead in shaping the answers. Rejecting the politics of scarcity, austerity, and divide and conquer. In forms of political education, we need to demand real solutions that allow all of us to thrive and not merely survive. Learning is available to you, as I've said before, to build your broad movement, to build your movement for a broad social effort that includes new governance models. And by that, I mean for our folks who've gotten elected into those positions that get to bring the politics of the people forward. Next is a powerful panel pointing out how together we are the change we have been waiting for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ethel. Thank you. I have the pleasure of working with Ethel here in Oakland, California. We work together on the Poor People's Campaign at Laney College. So without further ado, we are honored and excited to have 3 modern freedom fighters speaking today, in addition to all you in the audience as well. Our speakers will discuss the struggles and the work they're engaged in. Each speaker will speak for about 10 minutes. And after all 3 speakers, we're going to have discussion and questions and answers. The moderators will read your questions to the speakers. So please put your questions in the chat. Please, as people are talking and ideas come up for you, please put your questions and comments in the chat. Our speakers are 3 women leaders. Sylvia Orduño from Detroit, Michigan, Bonnie Contreras from Chicago, Illinois, and Carol Fife from Oakland, California. Rhea.
Right. So our first speaker is Sylvia Orduño. For nearly 25 years, Sylvia has been a community organizer with Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, a longstanding chapter of the National Welfare Rights Union that works on anti-poverty issues, which includes water and sanitation, affordability and access problems, and policies among low-income people. She is a coordinator with the Michigan-based People Water Board coalition of over 3 dozen grassroots groups working for human rights to water and sanitation. Plus, Sylvia serves as the new chair of the EPA's National Environmental Justice Advisory Council. So super, it's such a privilege to be, to hear from you today, Sylvia. Please take the mic.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Alicia. I really appreciate it. And to be here with Ethel and Kimberly and just so many longtime, allies in this struggle. And so it's a delight. And I appreciate, getting to talk too about, just what we've been doing in these recent years, right? In Michigan and Detroit in particular. And many of you know, the work of Michigan Welfare Rights and what we've been trying to do to just kind of stay on top of this onslaught against poor people, right? The growing poverty, the increased suffering, and I'm proud to be here too with Maureen, who I know is also joined in. And so I wanted, especially just right now, just acknowledge the incredible, amazing leadership and even mentorship, especially, right, that I've gotten from Maureen Taylor and Marion Kramer, as leaders in this welfare rights movement for so many years, and who have intentionally really mentored and fostered leadership development and that political education, right, that all important political education that says look, we're never going to understand the root causes of poverty unless we really do the political education and we talk about the ways in which we're dealing with these struggles and these different fights really are immersed in these problems with capitalism, right? And how it is that we've got these powerful forces really that are really lined up against us, right? And so the only way we're really going to win this is by really just mobilizing the masses, right? Doing that education that's going to help us help other people be able to understand how we win this fight. And so, I've been asked to talk here today about some of the work that we've been doing, especially here in the fall when it's been connected with this effort to beat Donald Trump, right? And let's just name that, because yes, we want to fight for our democratic rights and for the voting rights of our people, but in the end, we had to get this fool out, right? And so that was, just honestly a big motivator for a whole bunch of us, right? Even for our people who were saying, I don't want to vote, my vote never matters. They were like, all right, what do I got to do, right? Because we had seen enough of the madness and the stupidness in these last 4 years and the misery, right? And how many people we lost during COVID, how many of us, our folks got sick. And so the numbers and the misery is real. And so I guess what I want to start with, and when we're talking about that too, is just maybe some of the numbers, right? So here in Michigan, we've got a city that is majority Black. We've got approximately 700,000 residents, maybe just about 680,000 residents in the city of Detroit. And we have had, as of today, when I was looking up the numbers, 24,166 cases of residents who have contracted COVID. We've also had at least 1,655 confirmed cases, but we know that these are all estimated counts, as we've learned in many of our communities, that so many folks that were not identified as their death resulting, or even having gotten COVID and thinking it was something else, right? They attributed it to a heart attack or something. But we know that the numbers in our communities have been way higher. And so, this toll that it's taken on our people has been brutal. And so when we're coming into an election season and knowing that we were really going to have to galvanize our people and find ways to get out the vote without contact, right? That's almost against all of what we know about community organizing, right? Because that's what you got to do. You got to go to the houses, you got to knock on the doors, you got to do the phone trees. And then if somebody doesn't answer the phone, you go to their house, you're like, why aren't you picking up the phone? And right? So all these things we know we just have to do in order to get to our people who are often disconnected from technology, whose cell phones are on and off at any given time, right? Depending on how the money is playing and not playing out. So when we knew that we had to figure out how to actually come up with more of a get out the vote effort in Detroit to balance out some of the other stuff that's happening in the other parts of the state, we knew that the fight was going to be even harder for us, right? And many of you know this, where you're living in a state, California, it's so different because you almost have like multiple like Detroits, right? Or the kind of large majority of color communities. We know that we're having to really mobilize our folks to make up for what we know are the votes that are happening outside of our communities that are going to work against us. So in Detroit, we knew that we really had to get out the vote in even stronger ways here. And so we had to do it even against what we know sometimes was in our own best interest. We had to still go to door, right? And so it became the difference here. And we know that it made the difference here because we had teams of folks, both with Michigan Welfare Rights and with the People's Water Board Coalition. We were fortunate to get a small grant from one of these national organizations that were saying Detroit is one of our target cities, right? Where we have to mobilize folks to get out to vote, and we need folks to help them get the information to vote. So COVID just threw everything, into confusion, right? Like, first of all, even if you apply for absentee ballot, don't take it anywhere because the mail's not working, right? That's already been one of the efforts.
They were in the wash.
Well, you can't point.
Is it okay to unmute myself? I got muted. Okay, I'll just continue. So, right, and so the mail had already been a point of source that we could not trust. So we had been working with folks even ahead of time through the city clerk's office to say, look, you've got to set it up so that people can vote in multiple ways across the city. And so all of those different 30 points that were set up across the city for people to vote ahead of time, to go to your community center or go to a special location where the polls had been set up for absentee voters, was also in addition to all of these drop boxes, right? That were spread out in neighborhoods across the city where take your absentee ballot and put it in that box, right? Don't put it in the mail. We kept telling people don't put it in the mail because we don't know what's happening and if your ballot will get there in time, right? And that had been the thing, is that we wanted to make sure your vote is counted, but we got to do it safely. And we got to do it in a way that we feel like we're not going to be sabotaged on top of it. So let me tell you, Detroit, in a city again of about 680,000 people, was able to get a turnout of almost 50%. Incredible, right? In a city where we've been seeing the numbers more like at a third, sometimes even a quarter or even less with some of the other kinds of elections that we've had. And Detroit, again, when we're talking about the numbers and how they were mattering, especially for the Biden campaign, Detroit voted for Biden at 94%. And this is also when you're looking at where Detroit is located in the county of Wayne. And Wayne has about 1.74 million people. And Wayne County voted for Biden at 68%. So you probably heard the stories about how when the election results were being counted in Michigan and in Detroit in particular, the numbers were showing a lot of kind of votes for Trump, right? And these have been all of the people that had mailed in their ballots ahead of time, right? Or people who, but they hadn't been counted, because in Michigan, you can't count your ballots yet. And so they were counting first the people who had actually gone to a poll to vote. So all of the Detroit votes, the majority of them who had been people who voted absentee, they had gotten accepted, but they couldn't be opened yet because you have to wait for the polls to close. You're not allowed in the state of Michigan to start opening, not even open the outside envelope, right? And so what happened here is what we started seeing the Republican campaign and the Trump campaign start saying that there's fraud in Detroit, right? Because they had seen the numbers of all the people going to vote, which were largely Republican, and their votes getting counted, and then the huge swing during the night when the absentee ballots are getting counted and Detroit's votes are pouring in, right? And so that's when we saw here in Detroit, when Maureen and Marion and a whole bunch of us with Michigan Welfare Rights and our other kinds of allies and groups here are pouring over to the convention center, what they call here, it was Cobo Hall, now it's TCF. And that's where they were doing the counting for the city and the county there. And so that's when all of these Republican challengers started pouring in, right? And they're not even there to just watch the vote, which is what they kept saying they were doing. They're actually chanting, stop the count, stop the count. Basically, don't finish opening those ballots, don't process them, right? Because Trump had been in the lead and they believed that all these ballots that were now being tallied were fraud and trying to essentially stop the Detroit vote in particular, right? And so we named this because this is, again, not only disenfranchising the will of the voters in Detroit, but also, again, trying to take control of the power from what the people were asserting, right? We knew what the majority of people here were already intending to do with their vote, and the Republicans knew that too. And so they were trying to seize this opportunity to make sure that they could actually stop us. But lo and behold, right, Trump comes in and actually starts calling fraud left and right. The Republicans start pouring in here to try to, again, stop the ballot count. And we see that there are people within the state that are also trying to figure if maybe there's some validity to this. Fortunately, Michigan Welfare Rights has had this longstanding relationship with NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. And even back in October, they had said, look, we're looking at what you all are looking at in terms of this voter intimidation that's happening. And where people are saying, I don't believe that, there's going to be fair elections, because we've been hearing that all along from Trump and all of the folks that he had been getting echo comments from, right? And so they decided that they were going to have to actually come in here and come to Detroit polling sites armed and make sure there was no funny business, right? They were telling us, we don't trust Detroit to have a fair vote. They're going to cheat, they're going to lie, they're going to steal. So they were coming in here armed, and they were going to start sending people out to all of our polling sites, right? So local NAACP here says, oh, we ain't having that, right? So a lot of, like when we saw the folks down south that were standing up, even armed in the protests, right, over the summer, we had folks here that were saying, look, we're going to defend our own right to vote, and we're going to make sure that folks coming from outside of the city aren't coming here to intimidate our people. But we had already been preparing with those absentee votes, where our folks didn't even need to go to the poll, right? We were having their ballots put into certain boxes and collected ahead of time. So we sort of averted a lot of that. But I want to also let you know that another significant thing here that we're still managing, and thank you, Kimberly, I see your time warning there, is that Michigan Welfare Rights was the plaintiff against Donald Trump. And I'm going to just show you here in a screen share real quick, the lawsuit that we filed to make sure that they weren't going to come in and steal the vote from Detroit. So Michigan Welfare Rights, along with 3 of our residents here, Maureen Taylor, Nicole Hill, and Tisha Jones, filed this lawsuit, civil rights violation of the Voting Rights Act, in federal court. And as I understand, come Monday, there are going to be additional plaintiffs from different states joining this lawsuit, because we're trying to, again, make sure that there will not be any way that the Trump campaign can come back and try to undermine our vote. And so we wanted to, again, just appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And just at some point, we'll also just want to bring it back to helping you also understand how this fight has been connected to our fight for water rights and the insecurity that residents here have had for decades in terms of not being able to have the water that they need. So when we were doing the Get Out the Vote and the door-to-door campaigning, we actually started it with this effort to make sure that people knew where they could get assistance and Michigan Welfare Rights aid to make sure that their water had been turned on during COVID. But we tied it in with Getting Out the Vote so that we were providing service with Get Out the Vote at the same time, and making sure people who were having to stay at home had the information to still connect with us so that we can help them on various fronts. So that was like how we did it in terms of our organizing approach. And we're so happy to see that strategy paid off and that it built the momentum for the next level of the fight now that we've got our folks more engaged. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hoorah!
Wow. Thank you so much, Sylvia. That was beautiful. Part of my work in the Bay Area is with the Sunrise Movement. So I don't know if you're familiar, but it's, it's a movement of young people against climate change. And one thing that we center is like our, really working to protect frontline communities, right? Because at the end of the day, when the climate crisis hits, when all of these crises hit, it is BIPOC people who are at the intersections, who are on the front lines. And so, as revolutionaries, we have to think together on like how we're going to organize our people. And you spoke to the issues of COVID, right? Like we break bread. We know going to door, we know having those conversations. And in an era of COVID, that wasn't possible. But you stuck to it, and you and your group prevailed. And so it's just so beautiful to hear that success story. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to more. So thank you. And with that, I will pass it to Dr. King.
All right, I think it's, I just want to make sure, so some of you can't see the chat. So if you have questions or comments, you can text to this phone number. You can text your questions or comments to area code 408-691-6153. That's 408-691-6153. And if you can see the chat, then you can put your questions in the chat. G2? I think we're going to Bonnie next.
Yes, I was working on unmuting myself.
Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker will be Bonnie Contreras. She's the interim president of Chicago's Union of the Homeless, which was reestablished October 24th, 2020. Born and raised in Chicago, she is a mother, a grandmother, and a devoted partner. She has worked as a restaurant manager and registered nurse. She attended school for her doctorate degree while at the same time working in hospitals and performing in-home visits until she was unfortunately struck by a car and became disabled in 2017. She has been living in homelessness for over 2 years and currently still living in homelessness while serving her presidential duties for the new union. Bonnie, can you share with us?
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, guys. The reason why I would like to speak is, one, like y'all was just talking about the voting thing. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. Reason why I can say I'm an independent is because I done made up my mind that every year, every 4 years, when it come down to this election time, our government system do not keep their word. And that's a problem for me, because you're constantly telling me if I vote for you, you're going to do X, Y, Z. And every time I vote for you, X, Y, Z don't come through. That's why I'm homeless right now to this day, because I'm called. I done went to the Social Security Board. I've been trying to get medical care since this accident, which happened 3 years ago. I thank God that I'm still alive, but I thank God that I'm able to speak about homelessness because it's a depression for me. The word Webster got in his dictionary, and the Webster dictionary is not depression for me. That's not good enough because it's a mental problem and it's a physical problem. That's what depression is to me, because I struggle every day to make sure I try my best to live. And no matter how hard I'm trying to live, I got to deal with violence by all necessary, police especially, because they don't believe that homeless people are people too. And that's why I stick by the preamble that I had to learn in 8th grade. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. That bothers me because in order for us to form a more perfect union, you have to look at all nationalities, not whether you're rich or poor. You have to look at all ethics of people's lives. I became homeless because I was in a domestic violence situation after I got hit by a car. So I had to choose my life or continue to wake up being beaten. So I chose to become homeless. Nothing that I'm proud of doing, but despite that we're fighting to show the world that we are people, regardless of how many times we aim for change, quarters, food, or whatever. If you look outside of yourself like you guys do and reach out and just to help us, just say, hello, how you doing? Adam did me a solid. I'm sorry, but Adam did me a solid. The day before the day after my father passed, Adam came to Roosevelt Des Plaines where I was located at. And he said, hello, my name is Adam. How are you? And that gave me a life right there, because everybody before I met him walked past me and said, oh, that's an animal. A lady rode past in the car. I was sitting in my wheelchair in front of my tent. She said, look at the animals at the zoo. I'm like, what damn animal? But because I know for a fact I'm willing to help somebody besides myself, I'm already in a bad situation by being homeless. But I'm willing to help any and everyone learn what it is. Homeless people are not just alcoholics and drug addicts, because I'm not an alcoholic or a drug addict. I have pain issues, yes, I do. And when I get very upset, sometimes I might do go grab me a bottle, but you ain't gonna see it like that. But see, what bothers me so much is the people that got money, or our government system, not just the people that got money, the government system look at homeless people like they're nothing. Like alcohol and drugs is the only solution. Only thing difference is between us and them is they behind closed doors. We out on the street, so you ain't got no other choice but to see that. That's not who we are. We need help. If you're willing to help us the right way. Don't keep telling us what we are. We already know what we are. We need help. We reaching out. We constantly saying, help us. Y'all say stand in the line and give us a vote, but you ain't willing to help us. So what you need my vote for if you're not willing to help me, if you're not willing to stand on your word? Our United States supposed to be a people of their word. Everybody come from around the world to be in the United States because we supposed to be the land of the free. That's a lie. The reason why I said that's a lie is because, one, poor people are free. No, they're not. Because guess what? They got to rob, steal, and kill and do all kinds of stuff in order for them to survive. But then when they become a hero, then they get acknowledged. That's sad. And the only time the government really want to get on their job is during the wintertime. That's sad because people died through the summer, they died through the spring, they died through the fall. And it's out of homelessness because they got all these empty houses. They want to get to all these private owners for what? Put me in the house. If you don't know, if I don't know how to keep a house, teach me. We all wasn't raised with parents. We weren't all raised with the knowledge of how to keep a house or how to be nice and clean. If you feel I smell bad, go to the store and buy me a bar of soap and give me a bottle of water. I'll go find somebody's bathroom and clean up. But don't walk past me because I smell. You don't know what my issue is. That's my whole thing. That's why I want our government to get on their word. They've been lying to us since all of us have been born. And we've been taking it. Now it's time for us to fight back. That's where I'm at. Period, point blank. Thank you all for letting me speak.
Wow. Very powerful. Thank you so much, Bonnie. And Bonnie, I put in the chat something, a homeless, an article about the homeless union that's in the People's Tribune, but that was really powerful, Bonnie, just the things that you said, really speaking from the heart and really speaking to, you know, what's the purpose of politics? What's the purpose of a government if they're not going to help the people?
That's my whole thing. You ask me every year to vote for you or do this or do that. I'm willing to do that for you, but you're not helping me. You're constantly going to let me lay out here and die. And excuse me, made a veteran that I knew who lived on Roosevelt and Des Plaines named Wayne Warren. He was 72 years old. He froze to death out there. It bothers me because one, he fought for this country. I didn't. He fought so I could be free or have somewhere to be able to say, this is where I live. But right. They allowed him to freeze out here to death and didn't even acknowledge him. That's a problem for me. Because regardless of whether I fought for the country or not, when they say this is what you do, we're going to respect you, whether you homeless or not. You're supposed to have respect for any and everybody. Like they say back in the day, treat people like you want to be treated. If I walk past you and smack you, I expect you to smack me back because that's what I did to you. And that's what our world is not doing. They're constantly downing us. They constantly stuck on the Democratic and the Republican. Ain't nobody no better than the next. We all bleed the same blood. We all need to see 24 hours a day, and we're not doing nothing but sitting here. No, stop trying to treat us when you constantly, we need you just like you need us. You go, like they tell me as a young child, you can learn something from a kid if you sit down and listen, no matter how old you are. If you listen to a homeless person like me, the people that's one paycheck away from being where I'm at, you're gonna need somebody like me to give you the encouragement, to give you the strength to keep on wanting to live. Because when you feel like you want to give up, I thank God that Adam took his time out that day to just to say hi to me. Because I was at the point I didn't care no more. I didn't want to live. Because everybody that I know, family and all, not just the government, family and all, pushed me away. But I met somebody that said, come on, I got something for you. And I seen how hard he fought to get this union up off the ground. That's why I'm willing to run and run till I can't run no more. I promise you, Joe Biden gonna have a problem with me because I'm gonna be on him every day. Not just him, Mayor Lightfoot, her aldermen, all of them. I want to go from the bottom to the top. So when I finish with the bottom, when I get to the top, he already know who's coming. And I'm not playing.
Right on. Thank you so much, Bonnie. All right, let's give Bonnie a hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And now our third speaker on the panel, I'm proud to introduce, is Ms. Carol Fife, who is the council member-elect for Oakland's District 3, which is in West Oakland of Oakland, California. After decades of public service as a nonprofit director and community organizer, Carol was called to run for office by the people with whom she organizes every day. One of the founding members of Moms for Housing, Carol has fought both in the halls of power and in the streets to protect human right to housing. As council member, Carol's priorities will be to divest from police, to invest in community, get every unsheltered person in Oakland into housing as quickly as possible, and create progressive tax structures to correct social and racial inequities. Carol's historic winning campaign, supported by virtually every endorsing organization in Oakland, was powered by over 1,000 active volunteers and has transitioned into a permanent political organization dedicated to passing transformative legislation and building a progressive majority on the Oakland City Council. I'm so pleased to introduce Ms. Carol Fife. Welcome.
Woo-woo! Go girl.
Oh, well, that was a lot. Who are you talking about? Who did that?
Yes, sister.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me here today. I really love the way that you all organize. You are like some real deal old school organizers who like do the research, do the outreach, do the education. What I'm telling you, when I grow up, I'm gonna be like, forget all the stuff you just read, Dr. King, but it's those things, those principles that we've lost, that my campaign was trying to re-energize in the folks that were involved in electoral politics this year, because I said it this morning, there was another major race that was happening in the country, right? That took place on November 3rd. It was, significant to a lot of people, our federal election for a new president. But I got to say that a lot of people that I talked to said that regardless of what was happening around the country, this Oakland council race meant so much, even more than a presidential race, because when you address what's happening in your own backyard, when you get into the grassroots organizing of talking to people door to door, that can reach out and touch the city council members, touch the elected officials in their vicinity, then the ability to build real grassroots power is more likely, right? It's more possible, it's more tangible, because I can't go and knock on a door and have the president come out and talk to me. Not even some of our assembly members and the people at the state legislature, but what the Carol for Council campaign is talking about, which is a radical transformation of our processes. I can build that right here, and we can build from the ground up, and it will emanate up to the federal level. And let me tell you how that's true. Before the last couple years, none of these folks at the state level were thinking about the organizing that was happening in Oakland. But guess who called me to be on their housing and urban development transition team for the nation? The Biden campaign, right? So why are they reaching out to me? Why are they reaching out to Carol Fife? Because they know I'm a pipeline to you all. They know that what I represent is people power. And they know that, if they can be good with me, they can be good with a wide range of people. But I want y'all to know that you got to run it by the people. I'm just a mouthpiece. So you can't get Carol on board without doing what the people actually need done. So I say all that to say that they reached out to me because of what I represent. And what I represent only matters is if I am good with the people. That's my only significance. And they're doing it because of the power that we built in Oakland with this campaign over the last couple decades of building from the bottom up, from the grassroots up. So it is because the local organizing that you get state and federal and international folks looking and being like, oh, we need to be a part of that. So what we do on a local level is so critical. It is so critical. Build power where you are. Put your buckets down where you stand, because that is how we build true grassroots leadership, true power, true community, because that's what this is about, building community, person by person, individual by individual. Like the sister just spoke. She said, I'll talk to anybody. I'll organize with anybody. Was it Bonnie? Amen. Yes. Don't overlook me. I have value. And when you do, and when you ignore me, you lose a bit of what you could build. So everyone is important. Bonnie is so critical. The solutions that we need around housing are going to come from the people who don't have it, because their ideas will help us figure out what's best and what our goals should be and how to get there. They know what they need. They know what they need. So it is our job of people with privilege, because we all got it in some way or shape or form. Some have a different kind, some have others. But what are we going to use in the struggle for all of our needs to be met? What are we going to sacrifice, right? Because my position winning was historic. I'll be frank. I spoke with one of the board of supervisors a couple nights ago, and he said, I haven't heard of that type of campaign in all of my years in Oakland. And this elected official has been seated for quite some time. He said, that's Ron Dellum's level, like getting people energized for a movement-based campaign, when it's not connected to big real estate, not connected to developers, not connected to the OPOA, not connected to these existing power establishments, right? We were able to build something because of our care and love for the people who are unsheltered, the people who are unemployed, the people who are being displaced, the individuals who don't have access because of ability needs, right? the undocumented, the formerly incarcerated, all of these populations, the folks who don't have a seat at the table, if we do not include them in our processes for transformation, then we will replicate what currently exists and we will become who we are trying to dethrone, right? So we have our own internal work to do. And I say it every time, the Laney's Poor People Campaign, the way that you do political education is so critical. And it is lacking in our organizing spaces on the left. So we gotta be able to do this research, do the one-on-one conversations, talk to your neighbors, talk to the folks, speak to Bonnie on the street. You don't know what impact you're gonna have on somebody. And organize where we are addressing people's basic needs. And Corona gives us the opportunity to do that. We gotta look for opportunities in chaos because it will not always be good. And in fact, it's probably gonna get a little worse before it gets better. So we have to learn how to organize in crisis and continue to build community in crisis, like my grandparents did through the Depression, because that's what's gonna save us, right? Us being in community and in relationship with each other is going to save us. It's our only hope because we have no Superman coming to bail us out. Nobody. All we have is us and our ability to organize, right? So that means we need to be, especially for me in my position, as a representative of the people's needs. I want you all to understand, everybody right here, everybody here is not from California. Everybody's not, in this state, but the process is the same everywhere. They're going to try to separate me from my base. Who's going to do that? Who has a vested interest in our movement not succeeding? Is it the real estate industry? Check. Is it developers who have global connections in the finance industry? Check. Is it the police unions and the sheriff's departments who are being defunded all across our city? Check. And is it the media that's supposed to uphold the status quo by reporting on information in order to separate us, to separate movement leadership from the base? There's so many ways and that they do that. So we gotta bone up on our history and how movements have been undermined in the past. We have to be in relationship with each other so those old tactics don't work, that they gotta come up with new ones. And we have to be doing the work to take care of the people who actually need us right now, to pull them into this organizing if they're not already there. Because we can change the world right now. Every state in this country has some movements popping up. And it's not just this country, because we are a global family. It's happening all over the world. So what will be your role? What is your job in helping to bring that to the fore, to make that a reality? So the things that we talk about are not just chants and not just things that we write on posters during a rally, so that they're actually real. And hold me accountable. Hold me accountable. I came to do a job. Y'all got to give me my performance evaluation, but not just judge from afar, because we need to be working together on a constant basis. So you show up at the end of the 4 years like, well, you didn't do this. Oh, I'm not doing anything. What are you doing? I'm pushing what you're doing up the court. I'm opening up the door so you have a seat at the table. So that is a us process, not an either or. I'm here because people put me here to do a job that we will do together. And my door is open. I mean, I'm ridiculously busy. It's not okay. It's not okay. I understand it. But I'm also here to be a part of these coalitions, to hear what is necessary to happen for direction, right? There is no me without us. All of us come together to build this out. And we need to create a pipeline so there are more opportunities for people to step into leadership with a radical view of what love for community is, because that's what it comes down to. That I love you like I love myself. And I'm going to put the needs of our communities ahead of what is best for me as an individual, right? That is what leadership is. That is what we want our elected officials to do. And we want them to move out of the spaces if they are more interested in profit and profit over people. We need those folks who are politically climbing up a ladder to get out of position if it's about the next job that you have. In the same way that I'm asking people to put their buckets down and organize, I'm doing that too. And so I feel like I'm rambling. I don't want to take up all the time on the call. I know it's getting close to noon, but it is my love for people and humanity and my expectation that we can be so much better as what drives me to do this work right now. And I want to do that, and I can only do that in partnership.
Wow, thank you so much, Carol. Everybody.
Right.
Much love, sis. How are you, woman?
Councilmember-elect.
Very, very nice.
Powerful, powerful. So now we're gonna have a few questions. There's several questions from the audience, and the moderators are gonna be asking the questions. I want to start. Rayo's gonna ask the question.
Kimberly, before we move to the questions, can I just make a comment real quickly? One of the things that stood out that Carol said several times is relationships with each other, you know, and one of the things that we have done that's made it possible is having a voice through paper that speaks to the people's needs, the people's concerns. And the one that we have used for decades is the People's Tribune. You know, there's several articles that have appeared in the People's Tribune from Carol and about work that Carol is doing. One of them is the homelessness to homes. You know, as Carol takes office in January, you know, she's come to the attention of lead organizer behind Moms for Housing, and she has inspired people in several cities to follow that process of understanding the need to fight for housing in these housing that's vacant. So I just want to make a comment about that. That's where your voice can be heard. What Bonnie's dealing with on the streets in Chicago. You know, we use the People's Tribune to get that word out, and that keeps us connected.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to share that point.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, G2. And thank you, Ms. Fife. I really just appreciate the way that you said, like, you know, when we do this kind of work out of a place of anger, you know, that's righteous. But what really makes this sustainable is when it comes from love. And I just appreciate the way that you named that. And so I have the first question for you. Who is on the Oakland City Council and what can you accomplish there?
We have 7 districts with 1 at-large seat. So our District 1 North Oakland council member is Dan Call. District 2, that's around the lake and parts of that border my district, but that's Nikki Bass. District 3 is me as of January 4th. District 4 is Sheng Tao, and that is around up when you start to go up High Street, 35th in that area, Mountain Boulevard. It's mostly foothills and hills. It's where the mayor lives. District 5 is East Oakland, like around the Fruitvale. I saw that film. That's Noel Gallo. District 6 is moving into like the Maxwell Park Seminary area, and up to it borders on Deep East. It's getting into Deep East Oakland. I can't tell you all the borders, but that is Lauren Taylor. And District 7 is Larry Reed. That's Deep East Oakland, right before you get to San Leandro. There's also Hills to the west. Oh, did I say Larry Reed? I meant Treva Reed, his daughter. Sorry. And then at large for the whole city is Rebecca Capel.
And can you speak to what the possibilities are of a progressive majority on the council? You kind of touched on it during your initial remarks, but just want to center that.
With the progressive city council, hopefully we can pass some of the things that we've been working on that I've been working on over the last year, which is the Moms for Housing Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. So that will give tenants who are at risk of displacement because their owner is selling their home the ability to purchase their house so they don't have to find other places to stay. And we're also looking to pass a gross receipts tax to tax wealthier businesses in the city. That was also stalled by some of the conservative members of the city council. We also are working to make housing a human right, something that I've been trying to push for the last little while. And hopefully because we have new energy coming on this next year in January, we can have less obstruction to try to get those things passed. And because we also have to address COVID, hopefully we have a progressive council that can look at alternative fund and revenue generation than a more conservative. Like we need to move money from the police budget into community services for COVID relief. And I hope that a progressive council will allow us to do that a lot easier than we've run into in the past.
All right, thank you. I know that Sylvia maybe didn't get a chance to talk as much about the water struggle. I don't know if you'd like to just kind of briefly connect, like what are you fighting for with the water? How has that worked related to the pandemic? You know, how's that going? Just a little bit about the water struggle in Detroit.
Sure, thank you for this opportunity just to mention that. It's been pretty live lately too. So you all know that Michigan Welfare Rights been waging on this battle for over 2 decades now. We've been, almost every time we get a chance to talk about it, we do, and constantly grounding it in this fight for fighting against the rights of poor people to survive and thrive, right? And lighting what's behind it in terms of how it is that there are people that want to essentially decide who has the right to live and not, right? And the quality of life behind it, and the ability to not be sick from COVID, and what it means for also this worldwide design to privatize water, right? And so, Carol, you're so right about that these efforts are about really fighting for our rights at the local level, but they have international impacts, right? And so we have been pointing out from day one that public water owned systems in particular do not have the right to disconnect anyone who cannot afford to pay. Not only do you not have the right, you cannot do it for any kind of reason that would be justified in any way, right? But it happens no matter what we say. And so we constantly are up against this argument that people say, well, if you can't pay, you can't have it. And we hear that with everything, right? It's about a matter of survival. You can't pay for housing, you can't have it. Can't pay for healthcare, you can't have it. Can't pay for food, you can't have it, right? Across the board, they're telling us what we can't have because we can't pay for it. And so with this water battle, we've really drawn the line in the sand and said, look, this isn't, again, even just about poor people. Like, we know that folks don't care about the rights of the poor, believe that the poor brought this on themselves, right? How many times have we heard that narrative? But this is also about the survival of us as people kind, right? As human beings around the world. It's about all of our communities to be able to survive. And so this COVID connection with it all really has brought a lot of that to surface, right? Where people are like, well, maybe we do need to turn on people's water if they've been disconnected for days, weeks, months, and years, right? So that so they can wash up at home and they can protect their household public health. And then if they engage as essential workers in other places, that what they're not able to do to wash up after they go to the toilet at home or clean up after they cook some chicken at home won't be spread in addition to COVID, right? all of the public health concerns that we've been raising for years, but just more to it, the basic dignity and needs that we have at home, right? To be hydrated and all the health complications and implications that have made it so that our communities where people have been disconnected have exacerbated the death rates, right? The numbers of people that have been ill from COVID. And as we find all the connections related to diabetes, to health complications with your heart and immune systems, and we see how it's all interrelated, right? When people don't have what they need at home to just be able to protect the public health, right? And so we've been able to draw these connections at the local and the state level in particular. And through all of our hard fights over the years, we managed to get the governor of the state of Michigan to declare a moratorium on the shutoffs. Just actually, she's about to sign what was her executive order. We got the legislature, the House and the Senate, to actually pass a moratorium on the shutoffs. A huge victory for us among these water activists for so many years. And the governor that's expected to sign it. And then we've also got now, as of last week, the mayor of Detroit, who's been our nemesis for many years, agreeing that he's going to have a moratorium in the city of Detroit through 2022 on shutoffs, and that water will be restored across the state and locally so that we can develop a policy here and hopefully at the state level as we keep pursuing that for water based on the ability to pay. And so we know that that's only part of the battle for what is out there in many of these struggles. But again, this more than 2 decades long fight is finally getting us to actually see some results from so many freedom fighters and water justice allies. But you know, our lessons here, what we've also been trying to talk about in so many other spaces as folks are trying to understand the problems with disconnections in their communities and the infrastructure costs and the public health connections. And so we've become experts in many regards in these issues, right? Across, not even just at the human service level, but how it is we've had to even learn how these water systems operate, where the funding comes from, following that money, right? Always following the money. And I'm looking here just briefly at one of the questions that was in the chat about how we now also connect this with the new administration coming in. And this is really about holding their feet to the fire on these issues of equity, connecting the issues of poverty with equity as well, and making those demands that were made so powerfully over the summer, right, for racial justice, racial equity, and connecting them also with the rights of the poor. So we're continuing on that front, and we're so glad that, like so many of you, have helped us in this battle to actually get these small victories, but still victories that we've gotten recently.
Thank you, thank you. I'd like to ask a question for everybody, and maybe Bonnie can kind of start. What do you think are the main barriers to the work that you're trying to do and the next steps? Main barriers and kind of next steps. Bonnie, are you there?
Yeah.
Thanks.
They don't talk to me.
Hi. The main barriers is, one, they need to make sure these people try to get warm, because all the warming stations in Chicago, from the CTA people that I talk to and the places that they used to go to, like the libraries and stuff, they're all gone. What I feel should happen is they should let these people try to get warm, because one, this year is going to be horrible ending with a lot of homeless deaths, not just those that are on the streets, not just those that are in tents, even the ones that's in the shelters, because the shelters here, 5 of them I done called and they constantly saying, well, we're full and we can't do this and we can't do that because of the pandemic. I understand that part, but I feel like that our union, we're trying everything that we can to make sure all the people get the basic necessities like their food, their water, blankets and things and stuff like that, so that they can be warm this winter, because this winter right here in Chicago alone, let alone the other states, but Chicago alone is going to be so horrific that I feel they should stop looking down on us as people, regardless of the fact of the matter whether we can pay or not pay. We need help. And I thank you guys for giving us the strength and an encouragement to keep fighting, because if we don't fight, we're going to keep being walked over like a doormat. And that's not what we are about. We are about to fight for these people, that regardless of what the world or the government say, the people that's amongst you take on the government head on. That's what I'm for.
Thank you. Carol, how about for you? What do you see as the main barrier and kind of next steps?
I used to do a study group with an author, Neely Fuller. This is before Zoom, so we would just get on phone calls and just talk about things that we were reading. He wrote the book, gosh, it's long, so I'm looking at it, United Independent Compensatory Code /System/Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism or white supremacy. And one of the things that Neely Fuller said that really has always stood out for me is that if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. And so I think one of the biggest obstacles for me is running into people who have been programmed and don't know that they're programmed. Everything that we've been taught, we have to unlearn in order to build ourselves up from the bottom. So it's the automatic negative thoughts that come up when people say, I'm not involved in politics. I'm trying to organize folks, and they're like, I don't get into that. I don't do anything political. I'm trying to work. And so the conversation that everything is political, from the way that you, where you buy your food, the fact that you have access or not access to clean air and water, and housing, everything, your jobs, your education, everything is political. So it's reminding people that they are magic is one of the biggest obstacles, and that if we organize, we can actually win, because we've been programmed to believe that we can't, and that we need to do it inside of the lines. We need to color inside of the lines to get some change. So breaking those mental chains so that people remember that they are magic and that they are power is probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest obstacles.
Thank you. Sylvia, would you like to briefly state what you think is your major obstacle?
I think it continues to be how it is that we keep impacted people engaged, right? These battles for survival are so difficult. And so we know that just being able to get people together to organize, even aside from the COVID problem, right? Just together to organize, to articulate what it is that they want to see, right? And then help figure out what we got to do, right, to help them have them lead us in what they want to have happen, right? It continues to be, I think, among the hardest part, because people have been beaten down, worn down for so long, that when we finally see these windows of opportunity and we know we got to jump on them right before the next trick bag comes behind us, or the next politician tries to, again, as you were saying there, Bonnie, right, come with XYZ and then pull it out from right under us, or never even deliver to begin with, right? We know the patterns. We've seen this. This is how they work. But knowing that when we've got these windows of opportunity, we got to seize on them, right? Because it does give us a moment to at least slide that foot in the door, right? And then we hold it there, not let them close that door on us again. And then we get our people in there to rip the door open, right? And so we get these chances, right? And when we see them at times like this, we have to really sort of put all in it as best as we can, right? While now doing it as safely as we can. But in many ways, we still have to keep making those one-on-one contacts with people. And, and again, I want to really just like name what Maureen does here, that, we give her help for all the time, but no one fights for the poor in Detroit like Maureen does, right? She works on people's individual problems one by one, right? On that telephone, at night, on the weekends, on her lunch break from the school where she's already dealing with the kids, right? From 8 to 3 every day. And you know, and if she's not dealing with the kids, she's talking with their parents, right? And but that's what we need is to have folks not only like heard and helped, but then help them be in that next space to take the next step. Like, all right, now it's your turn to help the next. Now it's your turn to make that call. It's your turn to show up and tell the next, you know, mayor or whoever it's going to be what it is you want to see, right? And so we keep in that fight, but then we figure out like what is it we got to do now to take the next step, right? Because we keep sliding back, but when we get these chances to really take 2 jumps forward, we take them. And so that's what we're really looking at right now in terms of like how we strategize for our next steps here come this next year.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I just want to acknowledge, Bonnie, I see that your hand is up. Did you have some further remarks? I would love to pass the mic to you.
All I wanted to say is our slogan for our union is homeless, not helpless. That's what I want the world to know. We're homeless, we're not helpless. If you teach us or help us, you can see that we're not helpless. We just need your help. That's what I want, like she just said. My whole thing is this. How can you tell me to go quarantine myself? So how? Well, I'm going to lie down house quarantine. I'm homeless. That's what I love slogan. I'm just homeless. I'm not helpless. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show the world that homeless people can do what it needs to be done. We can show that we are the people that Slingshot gave us in our people, that we are the people in order to form a more union. And that's what I'm about. I want to show the world that we are the people, homeless or not. I want the world to know that we're not helpless, we're just homeless. Which, if you can help us, we'll show you how we not help.
Thank you.
That's right, Bonnie. Thank you so much. All right. I just want to invite everybody to just like drop your shoulders, maybe take a nice deep breath. There's so much good energy. I just want to harness it and just thank you to all the speakers. All right. And at this time, we're going to move forward. Thank you again. Can everybody just like drop some love in the chat, maybe put some snaps up for our 3 powerful speakers. They deserve to be honored. Thank you. So now with that, Adam, I would like to pass the mic to you for a little bit of a performance.
And we will be coming back for discussion. We're not done with the discussion. We're going to have a little performance break.
All right, thank you all. This is more what I would do, you know, after capitalism. I wouldn't have to be fighting for my friends to not die on the street. I would just write songs probably all day and sing them for you. So I'm glad to get to do a little bit of that. I got my foot tambourine here, but I'm gonna try to be gentle with it because we got downstairs neighbors. I got my guitar and I got a C harp, capo 3, playing in the key of G. So those of you know that means it's a blues. Wrote it last year, added a few new verses. It's called Merry Christmas, Tent City. They put up another notice on the viaduct tunnel wall. They put up another notice the viaduct tunnel wall. December 23rd, y'all gotta go. Merry Christmas to you all. Now they're saying that we gotta move our tents out here in the freezing snow. Now they're saying that we gotta move all our tents and stuff out here in the freezing snow. They say that we're blocking up this sidewalk, but Lord, we ain't got nowhere else to go. All the little birds and squirrels, they make the nest up in the tree. All the little birds and squirrels, you know, they make the nest up in the tree. You know the city's got a place for all them, but it ain't got no place for me. Mary and Joseph had their baby, yeah, in the barn outside the inn. Mary and Joseph, they had their little baby in the barn outside the inn. You know, if little Jesus Christ were born tonight, he'd be born right here under the bridge. That's why this winter we ain't gonna die outside, no, we're moving in. Yeah, this winter we ain't gonna die outside, no, we're moving in. Yeah, this Hanukkah I'm gonna light up some windows. This Christmas we finna fill every room in the inn. This Christmas all I want is one of these empty houses for my homeless friend. This Christmas, no, all I want is one of these thousands of empty houses for my homeless friends. So Santa got me these bolt cutters, 'cause we can't slide down no chimney like him. All right, thank you.
Right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Adam. G2 is going to introduce our next performer. G2, are you on mute, perhaps?
Point.
Hi.
Our next performer will be Adam Alzolfer. He's a poet and a regular contributor to People's Tribune. He has worked on projects on Skid Row with the LA Community Action Network, known, commonly referred to as LA Can, and he will share some of his poetry with us. Adolf, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Hey, everyone. I think that's a good biography, but also organized a lot in Venice and really folks, Venice, Los Angeles, and folks in solidarity with folks who are unhoused. So the poem that I'm going to read today, I'm going to just put it into the chat right now so everyone has it. Let's see. But basically, it's inspired by Dr. King's last speech. I don't know if folks have ever read it. I've been to the mountaintop, and he gave it to sanitation workers. And basically, yesterday's sanitation workers are often today's unhoused folks. I mean, the economy has destroyed lives. And I think the other thing that Dr. King is doing, I'm not going to go into the whole theology of it, but like basically the mountaintop is, I mean, generations of folks have gone, like Noah, Joshua, Solomon, et cetera, have gone to the mountaintop and still haven't been able to produce, but it's still, there's still something in going to the mountaintop. So, and this mountaintop is it's called Buffalo. So Buffalo, where Ibis undo the flags of courts, we've planted clouds of our path. As rivers dammed, twirled into dismay, we've come to repeat words that awake. The sun's splendid nude, I and you, rivers to fill, planting our buffalo. Arrogance paints its front door white. Grandmother Rain waters our blockade. Rainbow in mine ablaze. We walk the infinite. We've come to love's aid. Into walls, into halls, reaching into cliffs, twice crumbled, twice motion to know. Old coyote, the branch, three leaves, the mountain, etc. Ruins, hides that so and so transact until river is the tale. The one that a hand laid, never to harm another hand, another ground, another shade. Rainbow to commune of the many amazed, though its circle has fallen. O suffer, O empathy's wheel gone to another world, a world of portions of mountains, gone to swim contortions, breathe might, mind be wave, gone to weave mead, sing splendid, seed silently, spell fountains, gone to find old doors, bright doors, blooms true to will, drawn into a cave, its walls, halls of an ancient fertility, the first, the only, gone to ride the tent of songs, rain weaves with dancing feet. You, fire circle, are our buffalo to unpave. And that's the poem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adolf.
So G2, we're gonna now thank the performers, and we're gonna go back to the discussion for a little bit. And I think G2 was gonna ask a question of the panelists. Thank you to our performers so much, but G2.
Yes, what I'd like to speak on is kind of directed toward Carol Fife. We've been talking about homelessness and the brutality or the brutalness of homelessness as it relates to mothers and children, or women and children. There's a vulnerable population that we haven't spoken about, and it's one of the ones that I work with, and that's with those that are actually, Carol kind of made reference to formerly incarcerated, but that's with prisoners who, after spending decades of confinement, have come home, and a lot of them have come to the Oakland area that I have personal relationships with, that were confined for over 40 years. And finding housing for them has been a challenge. There's one prisoner, some of you may have heard of, Rochelle McGee, who I've been working with for quite some time, who's been incarcerated for the past 57 years. He goes before the board in March, and all his family's gone. So I want to ask a question. As difficult as it is for families, women and children to find housing, what about those that vulnerable population of prisoners, formerly incarcerated prisoners, being able to find housing?
That is a great question, and one of the populations I have a lot of concern for, especially because of the historic ways where we've been intentionally targeted for incarceration since the emancipation of slaves, and when criminalization was first made a thing. There's been an intention to keep us in bondage, and mass incarceration is the way that that's been done, which is, I think, directly in relationship to the number of unsheltered people that we're seeing on the streets. So I don't pretend to be an expert on everything, but I do know that one of the statistics that we found, organizing around moms for housing is that there's one for every one unsheltered person, there's 4 vacant units, right? So that is an existing inventory of the city. So why aren't we putting folks that are returning home into those vacant spaces? One of the projects I'm working on is to create a job training program for some of the moms who are interested in learning how to rehabilitate these vacant properties that have like gone down because the owners are not maintaining them. I don't know why we couldn't have that same program for folks that are returning home that might know or want to be able to learn how to paint a house or put up some drywall or might have those skills already, so that they can be a part of this pipeline to go into these units that we want to reclaim if necessary, right? So if there's vacant properties, there's enough for everybody. Scarcity is a lie. So the people who are returning home, especially who've been locked up for decades and don't know how to navigate smartphones or the internet or a lot of these things, I think there's an opportunity to develop a pipeline to get folks into housing. But we have to understand that, first of all, there's enough for everybody. And if we do need to construct additional housing, it should always be in line with housing the people who need it first as the target for who we're building for. So I would like to work with you if you have ideas on a project that we could expand and use as a model. I'm open to all of those things. What are the needs? What do we need to do? And what are some ideas that you have to create a project to address the population? And I just want to say too about Adolf. He said something in the poem that really grabbed my heart, that really stood out to me, that we've come to love's aid. Let me tell you how powerful that is in terms of that's what organizing is. We've come to love's aid to do this work. And I just wanted to say, Adolf, you really hit me with that one. Check, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. And my next question is kind of a follow-up to one question I was asked a little bit earlier when we asked you to name the biggest barriers to this work that you all have faced. And so I would love to just pose this question. What is your, I don't know, main strategy of overcoming these barriers, these different barriers that you guys have navigated? I'll pass it to maybe Sylvia to start us off, and then we'll go to Bonnie and then Ms. Fife. And let me know if you need me to clarify that question.
I'm gonna ask if you could please. I'm typing to chat at the same time. I'm sorry.
So the first question was, what are the biggest barriers to get what we are fighting for? And then you guys answered that. So now I'm curious, what do you see as the best strategies to overcome these barriers?
So I'm gonna keep going back to Bonnie. You know, I think that she's named it when we really have to rely upon one another in the different struggles that we're on, right? I know that so many of us already, you know, have our hands in so many things because of how it is that poverty is just pervasive in so many of the issues, the basic needs that we have, right? But I'm thinking, like, for right now, like I in Michigan Welfare Rights, we spend a lot of time working in these water rights and sanitation issues that are related to the problems of poverty. But now we've got to get our foot in this next fight that's happening right now at the end of the year with this national moratorium on housing evictions, right? That's about to expire, and people that are already being put out by sheriff's departments and notices that are being hung on doors. And, you know, and here we are in, you know, just beginning to taste winter. Many of our communities already are getting the cold and the snow that's coming. And so we need to also collectively now start getting into this fight around not only just affordable housing and eviction prevention, but the housing that exists right now in our communities, as many folks have already here said, that belongs to the city, belongs to the public. We've got to get folks in those houses. And many of us in some ways kind of experimented with that during Occupy, right? When a lot of us were like, look, we've got unhoused and homeless people and people who can't afford the housing they're in right now, or they're double tripled up with mom and grandma, right? And need places to live, and the city has plenty that belong to the people. And so here we are again, the same issue, the same challenge before us. And so I think, to me, this is again another one of those windows where we've got to really move, and moving our elected leaders to actually take over the housing that's right now happening, but in many cities across the nation simultaneously, to stop the evictions and to move in more people at the same time into these abandoned houses, or in some places which are fine houses that are land banks and other groups have taken over because they want to convert them into market rate housing, right? But still belong to the city, belong to the people, and move our folks in that need it, right? And so to me, that's one of the next steps in the struggle right now.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to comment. But I do have another question, which is, what do you all think needs to be done to stop the pandemic eviction wave that so many of us are worried is going to happen? What can be done to stop the pandemic wave of evictions? And if Carol could also talk about the significance of the community land trust. Is that a solution for homelessness? So anybody have thoughts about what can be done to prevent the evictions?
Yeah, there are a few things that can be done, but I think number one is to cancel the rent debt and the mortgage debt, and bail out people and not corporations and not corporate landlords. And the foreclosure crisis of 2008, banks were bailed out and by the hundreds of billions. 15 billion Bank of America, 10 billion Wells Fargo. I mean, they're billions. We could do that by having the same type of stimulus for the people who are actually at risk of becoming homeless. The United States economy is based on people, individual people, and engaging in the spending of their resources. It is completely built on our backs. So there should be more interest, similar to what FDR did with the Great Depression, and actually ensuring that there is always land and housing for people. So I've been doing a lot of research around the Depression, and speculation is part of what spurred the Dust Bowl. It was speculation in those areas in 4 states that had people rushing to this area, and then they start abusing the land, contradictory to what the indigenous folks from that area said. So speculators were like, everybody come to this area. It's the Eden of the United States. It's the breadbasket of this country. But because they didn't listen to the land, and they were tilling it up in a way that wasn't good for that particular region and good for farming, when the winds came that were typical to the Great Plains, it took off the entire top layer of soil for millions and millions of acres. But those are the millions and millions of acres that the federal government sold to speculators. So I want us to understand how housing and environment are tied together. And I say that to say that after 6 years, 5-6 years of experiencing extreme drought because of these environmental practices, they stopped speculation. But when the New Deal actually started regrowing the land again, so it was coming back, and with a new method of farming, the speculator said, if we fixed it, let's go back and do it all over again. And so if the government wouldn't have bought up those hundreds of millions of dollars and put that land in a trust, we would have seen 2 Great Depression era dust bowls in the middle of America, because people could not stop speculating, even though they had the evidence that it was the most devastating environmental disaster in the history of the United States. they were willing to do it all over again and speculate all over again. We've got to have land trusts where land and housing is affordable and accessible to all people, regardless of income, in perpetuity, forever. If we don't utilize trusts as a way to secure land and housing, we will consistently find ourselves in a place where we have nothing. And when we have a capitalist government, because that is really the heart of the problem, that everything is commodified. Until we address commodification, in addition to what we're talking about, then they're always going to be able to raise the prices of something that's essential to our lives. And so we have to address both. But one of the things we can do immediately is use land trusts to secure property and space for us to live. I'm sorry if that was too long, Dr. King.
No, it wasn't. That was great. Thank you. Either Sylvia or Bonnie, do you want to say anything about what should be done to stop the eviction pandemic? It's all right if you don't.
One, we're about to go to town city hall and all of that, and with our petitions, and let them know that this is what we're. How come they want to evict us, constantly raising the rent every year? Like me, my children have to stay in a $1,600 house every month. Thank God that I'm able to do that to keep them from being homeless. But what bothers me is they constantly want to raise the rent. How you expect people to live when they don't have a basic income? Like those that are veterans that has retired and has done all this stuff. We need to get them to understand. We don't have income like that. If you want us to have income, y'all constantly hollering about the economy going bad, but I can sit there and guarantee you, your wife walking around with a $5,000 boot bag on her back. So the money that, like she said, we need to take funds from the police station, from all these places that they keep saying that they got money for, and give it to the people that's who it's for. That's what our votes is supposed to be about. You're asking us to do this, so why can't you be a person of your word? My mama told me a long time ago, and I was a kid when she told me this. If you're not a person of your word, you ain't nothing. Because that's what the government has done to all of us in every state that we live in. They have given us their word, and they constantly taking it back. Then they holler about the economy going up and down, up and down. Now that we get this pandemic, it's have no money. Like us, you help. And what I about it in a house, you ain't asking you to change. You could. That's what I want to use. If you help me, place where I can sustain my heat, my water. Said they going through the water, and they had to go through all of this. If you sit down and stop, they so busy with themselves, not worried about the world. They can care less about either one of us, homeless or not homeless. And that's what we need to make them understand. We are the people. Y'all constantly coming to us for all kinds of solutions. And when we give y'all the answer to our solutions, like you wouldn't know what it is to be homeless if you never talk to a homeless person. So if you help me, I can help you. We're learning from each other. Let's learn how to put these trees together and make this thing blossom. That's where I'm at. I feel I should go. When we go down here Monday, not less long am I going to speak. I'm just going to let it be known. If you help me, I can help you. Because you one paycheck away from being where I'm at.
Right on.
Right. Yeah, so ultimately it is about canceling not only the back rent, but the back utility bills, right? And so everyone who is a utility provider and a landlord is essentially expecting that they're going to get paid at some point, right? When COVID gets better, right? That we're going to all just have money to come back and pay all these old bills when we didn't have the income to pay them to begin with, right? And so we have to demand that there is not only the affordability for what we need right now, but that there's cancellation on the bills we can't pay because they're not going to get collected, right? And there's got to be a national honesty about that you can't collect from people that don't have. And so, this is a problem that's constantly going on with the affordability problems in the utility sector and with the water operators, that they keep thinking that if they put people on these payment plans right now, they get them to pay their current bill plus a portion of their back bill, that at some point they're going to get caught up. But you never can manage the current bill. So you'll never be able to manage paying off that back bill. And so that's really where we're at also too with housing and this incredible debt that's being built up. And so there has to be really just a forgiveness of all that debt, a cancellation of the debt, and then finding ways that for folks that, are, small business landlords. I'm not talking about any of these big developers that don't need the money, that are always just going to find a way to squeeze. But for folks that are some of these small business landlords, people that are trying to do the right thing, that this is part of their retirement, right? Part of their retirement savings. That we figure ways to help out our community-minded folks that are saddled with some of these bills, but not in any way to try to, again, address what developers want and don't need.
Well, thank you so
And
much.
that's the problem with the world. And that's our problem. They so busy worrying about us trying to catch up on back bills. Like you said, we need, period. Like once we tell you we can't afford this, you should make it where we can afford it. That's why our economy and our world system is constantly going down, because you're constantly trying to make yourself bigger and constantly making us little, because we're struggling. Like you guys, we struggle day to day, month to month, to make sure we got at least the basic necessities, rent, light, and gas. And when we can't afford rent, light, and gas, where we at? Out on the street. That's not fair to anybody, not just the home, anybody, because those that work, before I got hit by a car, I was working for 15 years straight as a registered nurse. And it bothered me that I got hit by a car, because now I'm stuck on a fixed income. I don't like a fixed income. I like working for my money. It's not about being on a taxpayer's dollar. And that's what the world system, that this government that we have, they so busy stuck on us being on welfare, Social Security, and all of that. They not worried about what the next step is to keep us living. They so busy trying to cancel oh, we ain't gonna raise taxes. The devil is a lie. Every time you say you ain't gonna raise taxes, you done raised it already. The lie that you're constantly telling us is not helping us. You're constantly saying we want to do this, we want to do that, but you're constantly trying to cut off stuff. I have an asthmatic child. You cut off my lights, we're gonna have a serious problem. Because if my child have an asthma attack, his asthma pump don't work that right. So I have to use a plug-in breathing machine. Then my child wound up dying because why? I couldn't afford my light bill. Because why? The government want to say, okay, we're gonna put you on this plan, and then while I'm trying to play that plan, like you said, I'm busy paying my black plan instead of the current plan. So it's either they're gonna stop, or they're gonna wind up having to feel like we feel. And we're tired of feeling helpless, because that's what the world is making us feel, helpless. Not because everyone is homeless. We're feeling helpless because our bills is going up every year, every month. When you don't pay $400 for the light bill, for that month that you owe, it's gonna go up to $800. We don't have $800 to get a light company. We stuck on fixed income, no matter whether you work or not. You said when we get up every day, even with the ones with the job, like me, I knew every 2 weeks I'm gonna get paid X amount of dollars. I know what bills need to be paid, pay that off. But it still didn't work like that, because I still wind up where I'm at, homeless. And it's still not helping us. We're constantly struggling to survive, whether we're homeless or not. Those that have houses, those that have jobs, we're struggling every day to live faithfully, to learn how, because we gotta find, in our income, we gotta put our food, we gotta put our bills, we gotta put ourselves. If we ain't putting all that together, how we gonna live? We're not gonna live, we're not gonna make it in this world if they constantly keep on doing us like they're doing us. Then they constantly lying to us with these promises. If you vote for us, we gonna give you houses. You vote for us, we gonna cut taxes. The devil is a lie. I'm 40-something years old, and I'm sick and tired of hearing that same old lie.
That's right. Well, thank you, Bonnie. Very important comments. I'm going to turn it over to Rhea.
All right. Yes, thank you guys. And I think there's no better way to end this and end our time together than to just pass it over to Kimberly Moses, who will talk briefly about what the League is and how you can get involved. So much good energy here, and now we gotta, just take this all in and move forward and, you know, really center this in our praxis. So Kimberly, please take it away.
Wonderful, wonderful. I first I want to just say that this discussion has been powerful. Sylvia, you've been a warrior out there in Michigan. Thanks so much for your tremendous work. Miss Bonnie, you're beautiful, and you are very important to this struggle. And just stay in the fight, sister. And Miss Carol.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Miss Carol, I just want to say, girl, well done. Well done. So this event has been brought to you by the League of Revolutionaries for a New America. And, you know, when you go by the acronym, the LRNA, who is Lerna? We're members of the working class who come from different backgrounds with different experiences. We are social, political, and class conscious individuals working to elevate the consciousness of our class and to influence the struggle for change and transformation to a cooperative society. A society that must be based on the public ownership of the socially necessary means of production and distribution of the social product according to need. This is revolutionary, and we are revolutionaries. How do we do this? What do League members do? Our mission is to connect with and unite the scattered revolutionaries on the basis of the demands of the new class. A growing class of workers that are demanding food, quality housing, education, and healthcare. A class of workers that can no longer survive in a system of corporate private property, oppression, and destruction. Study and analysis is our tool, education is our sword, and our direct action is to mobilize and engage in the revolutionary process, in the battle of ideas as we struggle in real time, in the streets, in workplaces, and everywhere we are. So I'm just going to bring up something right quick. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, okay. The voice of the League. Our tool in the battle of ideas is the Rally Comrades publication and website that provides up-to-date articles, statements, and analysis of the key questions and events important to revolutionaries. The Rally is a tool that can be used in political discussion, study circles, or teach-ins. We also offer articles in Spanish that would be in each publication. Here in Oakland, Rally articles are an anchor to our lesson planning as we study, analyze, and understand local struggles. We encourage you to check out the Rally Comrades and subscribe to the Rally directly from the Rally website. How do you become a member of Lerna? We invite you to join us in the struggle for change. To be a member is to accept our program, work together in the battle for ideas, and unite around the fight for basic needs, study and learn from one another, and to help educate and unite with other revolutionaries to realize a vision to secure the future of humanity and our planet. Stop that share. Okay. If you, for people that are interested and know more about us or are interested, you just ready to join, come on. You can contact the person that invited you to this event. And we will also put in chat our website where you can get more information as well. And I will turn this back over to our wonderful moderators of this event. Thank you so much for all your efforts today.
Go, Kimmy.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kimberly Moses. And thanks to everyone who participated today. Thank you to our three hosts. It was Alicia Rea, who is a student leader, and Jitu Siddiqui, who is a community leader and an advocate for prisoners and criminal justice reform or revolution. And I'm Kimberly King. Thank you to our speakers, Carol Fife, Bonnie, and Sylvia. Really important speakers that we had. And I think it was really important what Carol said about a lot of these problems come from capitalism, the capitalist system. Everything we need is commodified. But as Bonnie mentioned, we don't have the money to afford them. So are we just supposed to die? No. The solution is to transform society so that we can meet the needs of humanity and the earth. And that is possible. So we really hope that you'll consider joining LERNA and learning more about us, and just we're all going to fight together. We're all fighting forward together. Thank you, everyone.